do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I want to apologize.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check the waistband?
I got.
Turn around for me real quick.
Perfect. Nothing.
I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat. All right. Oh, do you have your ID on you?
In the car. If you want to come with me.
No, we'll just do this. Just go ahead and take a seat.
You come with me. I'll give it to you.
No, you're fine. What's your first name?
Brian.
Brian. Is that layman spelling?
B-R-I-N. Yeah, and L-A-U-N.
And then your last name?
L-A-U-N.
L-A-U-N.
D-R-I-E.
D-R-I-E?
Yep.
Laundrie? Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your date of birth, Brian?
Pausing at 7 minutes and 50 seconds, this is an important shift in Brian Laundrie's expression. Notice at 7 minutes and 37 seconds that there's a shift in Brian Laundrie's countenance. When he's giving his name to the police officer, his expression is one of, "Please don't hurt me, Mr. Officer." But watch as he looks over to the police car where Gabby Petito is sitting, and that meek expression evaporates, and there is a glare towards where Gabby Petito is. This is the paranoia that resides within Brian Laundrie. When he looks over, he knows that she is in the police vehicle. That brings her back onto his radar. And in the unconscious, his narcissism assesses that she has to be controlled. He can't assert control over her directly because the police officer would not let him make his way across to where she is. And he can't do so indirectly. He is denied that opportunity. And therefore, the third assertion of control, where he thinks essentially a dark thought about her, driven by his narcissism, and he stays in a position of withdrawal, allows him to assert that control. That's important for you to understand, and regular viewers of my work will be well acquainted with this, that the narcissist must always have control over those who appear on our radar. If you're in front of us, or we receive a message from you, or somebody mentions your name, or you just happen to pop into our heads, those methods and others bring you onto our radar. And where a narcissist is unaware, they don't realise this, but driven by their narcissism, they have to take steps which their narcissism motivates them to do to assert control through one of the three assertions of control. And if you'd like to understand more about what those three assertions of control are, then go to the Knowledge Vault, link in the video description, and obtain the three assertions of control. They're broken down into direct, indirect, and withdrawal. And the three assertions of control goes into much more detail about what they are. Here, because Gabby Petito has come back up on his radar because he's glanced over at the vehicle, the narcissism instantaneously has to try and get control of her. The direct and indirect methods are not available to him, and therefore Brian Laundrie isn't thinking, "Oh, I have to bring her under control," but rather his narcissism does it for him and causes him to think a dark thought about her. For instance, "That bitch better not be grassing on me," for example. Hence, the sudden loss of the facade, resulting in him responding with that glaring look. He is asked for his date of birth by the first police officer, and you'll notice that there's a moment of hesitation before Brian Laundrie snaps out of looking towards Gabby Petito before he answers. And that's because his narcissism is still focused on the dark thought that he's having about Gabby Petito, and he doesn't respond immediately to the question from the police officer. Of course, the police officer's question is a threat to his control because he's asking him something, but he's easily able to assert control over the officer by giving him the answer as to his date of birth. You'll also notice that following 7 minutes and 37 seconds, Brian Laundrie looks over twice again to see what is happening with Gabby Petito. This is not born out of any concern for her as to what is happening to her, but is solely driven by his narcissism out of concern for his ability to assert control over her.
I'll say crisscross applesauce, but can I just sit in the shade because I'm bald? It's okay.
I'll give you some shade.
Sound good?
Alright, just hang tight for me. SO229. I need a 29 name and date of birth. First name Brian, layman spellings, last name Laundrie, Lima Alpha Uniform, November, Delta, Romeo, India.
Where'd you hit him? You slapped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you slap?
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November.
And then what? And his reaction was to do what?
It's going to be out of Florida.
He just grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him. I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you. Because, where did he hit you? Don't worry. Be honest. Did he slap your face or what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, we don't.
Okay. What was up with his driving? This officer said he hit a curb. While you're driving?
Well, he was driving.
While he was driving, you were hitting him?
I'm not.
We pause at 9 minutes and 48 seconds. The second police officer has been speaking to Gabby Petito and finding out what has been happening. We, however, join the conversation part way through to learn that Brian Laundrie has grabbed Gabby Petito about the face. Assertion of control through a direct method of the application of physical violence. The first police officer had picked up on the scratches to Brian Laundrie. In my experience, scratches are a defensive action to make an aggressor let go. They are not an offensive action on the whole. Yes, occasionally somebody might go for somebody and rake their nails, but usually where somebody has pinched, as is the marks upon his arm as if he's been gripped, which the police officer looks at earlier on, and the scratches to his face, they are invariably a defensive action to make an aggressor let go or to stop doing what they're doing, and they're not usually an act of aggression. An act of aggression, whether coming from a male or female, tends to be a punch, a slap, or a kick. The scratching is a defensive action, and although the first police officer has picked up on this, he doesn't form the view that it is a defensive action, and again misses the point that, one, what has got Gabby Petito so upset in the first place, given that she has made references to there being fighting earlier on? That hasn't been explored. And two, has not picked up on the fact that the scratches could be a defensive action, and instead forms the conclusion that it's the act of an aggressor rather than a reaction.
Did you already tell him all this?
I didn't get that far into
Okay,
it. She
so
was hyperventilating
She's
a little
saying
bit.
that they don't drink, but at the point when you let them up,
You don't drink or anything.
She started hitting him.
Yeah, I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I kind of punched his arm like there's a just an
that
idiot.
she's saying was why he hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I really thought it was Gabby.
Yeah.
We pause at 10 minutes and 21 seconds. Gabby Petito admits that she has hit Brian Laundrie and states that this caused him to hit the curb. Again, this is another admission, and note the consistency of her behaviour in terms of admitting that she's done something wrong and that she remains consistently upset with regard to the situation. This again is commensurate behaviour with that of the victim, blaming herself for the reasons that I've explained earlier and remaining upset as a consequence of what has happened. There is no compartmentalisation being exhibited by her.
Try to meditate stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his name? Is it Brian? Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah, but it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
Pausing at 10 minutes and 57 seconds, Gabby Petito explains that she experiences anxiety, and she confirms from a leading question from the police officer that Brian Laundrie is patient with her, but that he gets frustrated. However, we don't actually then get to hear what else she has to say, as this has been redacted from the footage. It may well be that she is more expansive about the interaction between them and why he behaves in a particular way towards her. She may well have been explaining more about his behaviours. Unfortunately, we don't hear that, and therefore we don't know what else she has explained, and we also don't know what further information the police officers have been furnished with regard to whether that impacts upon their decision making or ought to have impacted upon their decision making with regard to this situation.
Way of taking my anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, I'm just sharing, I know it's a little personal, but to help you understand, we would feed off each other's anxiety and it would spiral, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul, just saying. And I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at the situations you can get in, you know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time and then it usually, we'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from...
Pausing at 11 minutes and 32 seconds. The second police officer seems to think it's all anxiety linked between the two individuals, and he wades in with his experience with regard to his ex-wife. Interestingly, he concludes that, I think we've heard everything now, even though, of course, we know that the first police officer has not heard the totality of the explanation from Gabby Petito. This seems to me to be remiss, and that there is a failure of the exchange of information between the first and second police officers with regard to Gabby Petito's explanation. Interestingly, of course, you'll note that Gabby Petito doesn't interject and say, I've not told him everything that I've told you. She sits there, she remains compliant, and she doesn't protest. Were she a narcissist, for example, she would be doubtless repeatedly protesting her innocence and explaining, well, you've not heard what I've got to say about all of this. She wouldn't be blaming herself, she would be blaming Brian Laundrie. And her reaction in that regard shows that she is browbeaten, that she's ground down, that she hasn't in fact got anything about her to remain defiant and in effect stand up for herself, but instead seems rather resigned to her fate. Again, this is commensurate with an individual who's repeatedly been told that she's the problem and that she's begun to accept that she is. She has begun to accept her status as victim.
Quick question, you said you were hitting him in the arm. Did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch the steering
wheel? I didn't touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like, you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and like swerve or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Pausing at 12 minutes and 3 seconds, Gabby Petito admits that she has hit Brian Laundrie, only for a moment, because she felt that he was an idiot as the police lights came on and he was getting pulled over. She denies grabbing the steering wheel, which contradicts what Brian Laundrie said earlier on. Notice again with regard to Gabby Petito, there's no repeated blaming of Brian Laundrie, but there is this common victim self-flagellation that she continues to engage in. She very much sees herself as the problem in this scenario and isn't fighting against that.